Welcome to Four Quarter Lives, a podcast exploring the profound impact of longer lives and careers on everything: countries, companies, couples, and careers. I'm Avivah Wittenberg-Cox, and on this week's Four Quarter Lives, I talk with Jean-Yves Minet, Global Brand President of Novotel, part of France's Accor group. Jean-Yves has had a fascinating cross-sector career, including senior leadership roles at Estée Lauder during the shift from anti-aging to pro-aging narratives. In 2024, he stepped into Novotel, the original Accor brand founded in 1967, and within months repositioned this global mid-scale hotel chain around a deceptively simple idea: longevity every day. In a hospitality world where well-being is often framed as a luxury biohacking or extreme retreat culture, Novotel is attempting something different: democratizing longevity. Built around four simple pillars: sleep, eat, move, and meet, the strategy focuses on 1% daily improvements that compound over time. We explore what this means for business travel, multi-generational families, workforce design, sustainability, and the future of what Jean-Yves calls quiet well-being. If longevity is becoming a mega trend reshaping every sector, then hospitality may be one of its most important and revealing laboratories. Jean-Yves Minet, welcome to Four Quarter Lives.
Thank you.
Jean-Yves, you've had a senior global career in beauty at Estée Lauder, right in the middle of the shift from the whole anti-aging to pro-aging to longevity. Then you moved into hospitality and within months helped position Novotel around a deceptively simple idea: longevity every day. What I want to explore today is the strategy behind that move. Why a mid-scale hotel brand is choosing to democratize longevity, what it changes in the real guest experience across your four pillars, and what it means for the future of hospitality as AI grows and trust becomes the latest currency. But let's start at the beginning. A strategic bet. Why Novotel? Why now? When you arrived at Accor Novotel in July 2024, what did you see that made you think, Novotel might be able to own this space? What was the strategic problem you were hired to solve?
Yeah, thank you. Well, I like that you called this the beginning, because in fact, the Novotel brand is very special. It is the first brand that the Accor group founded in 1967. So this is actually the birth of the group. It was at the time of, in France, les congés payés. And Novotel had always been this brand of innovation for families and business travelers.
Novotel the very beginning of paid vacations. When was that? What decade are we talking?
Yeah, I mean, it's the late 60s, beginning of 70s. Novotel was a concept brought from the United States, the motel kind of concept. We were the first brand to bring the bathroom inside of the guest rooms, and the innovation really kept on going. So I think it's important to go back to these origins. And today, the world is very different. 2026, the world is very different, but the brand has a strong legacy. So I guess the strategic challenge and opportunity that we had when I started in July 2024 was, how do we keep a legacy brand relevant and connected to the needs of the guest by really answering real human need, which is very relevant, even more so today. And that need is really helping people feel better during and after their travel. And so when me and my team started to really think about how do we position Novotel for today, but for the future specifically, we quickly realized that Novotel was really at the intersection of work, family, everyday life for decades. So it was extremely relevant to start talking a little bit more on the concept of longevity, because that concept is rooted in real life. So from a brand that started in 1967 to today, a brand being always innovative, having I would say, the human needs at the center of its value proposition, helping people feel better. That felt very natural with this new notion of longevity to take on that journey.
Yeah, so you've kind of had this family work-life balance in your DNA since inception. I'm glad to hear that it brought bathrooms into the rooms. That was a good move. So what changed? Like, what made that shift when you put longevity as the organizing narrative, which is pretty new? What did it unlock strategically, both internally and externally, I guess?
Well, the concept of balance is an interesting one, but it can be a little bit difficult. How many of us can really say confidently that we have balance in our lives? The pursuit of balance can be exhausting and satisfying, as it often feels a little bit out of reach.
It's increasingly so.
Absolutely. And on the opposite, longevity is a much more positive, purposeful, forward-looking concept. It's all about, small improvements that compound over time. So, I felt very much so that balance was a very static concept. You are either in balance or you are not in balance, versus a longevity is more of a pursuit of wellness, pursuit of happiness, living a longer, fuller life. And I have to confess, in the positioning of longevity every day for Novotel, there's a little bit of me inside. I'm the typical Novotel guest. I'm a father of a 5-year-old girl who I adore. And I'm also a businessman. And that's exactly the type of guest that we have at Novotel, balancing this family life together with business travel. So as a person, my goal is to become a better man every day. That's really what I've always.
That's a good goal. Good goal. We can only approve.
And for me, it has always been about this continuous improvement. So when my team and I were discussing about balance, about the importance of wellness, the importance of, people wanting to live a fuller, healthier, happier life than ever, especially after COVID, it completely resonated to me that we had to embark on this idea of longevity, but longevity in a slight different way than what people usually experience. It's more about, progress versus perfection, which is another big mantra of mine, focusing on smaller changes in shorter increments to create opportunities for impact in the long term. Because at the end of the day, I think longevity is really this holistic view that connects different elements of what you do in your life. You talked about these 4 pillars of life, sleep, eat, move, and meet. It's about all these habits that we embark on, that we try to improve little by little, day after day, that will eventually pay off in the long run. So that's a little bit of the journey that we did from balance to longevity for Novotel.
What I'm appreciating is this is a bit of a category disruption that so far what we've seen from the hospitality sector is treating well-being as either these unbelievably luxurious and very expensive retreats with some very strange amenities and crypto chambers and all kinds of things. What are you saying to the industry with this slogan of longevity every day that may not be quite yet fully understood?
Yeah, I think there's a huge dichotomy here, and that creates a business opportunity. Longevity is not a niche trend. Longevity is a mega trend. It's reshaping our world, our industry. When you look at the amount of money that is generated under the concept of longevity for the travel and leisure industry, it is forecasted to be $4.6 trillion by 2030. So it's something massive. However, today, it's framed as something exclusive. It's mostly in the luxury segment. We're talking about biohacking, cryogen, off-grid retreats, expensive supplements, new technologies, and not only in the hospitality industry, but also, in the beauty industries, mostly for the luxury segment, in the supplements, etc. So it seems that longevity is, I would say, a goal of everyone, but it's a benefit of the happy few. And it should not be that like. I think longevity is not about tech, is not about, spending money. It's about people. It's about living better, fuller, happier life. And it should be accessible for everyone. For me, it's about everyday life. It's not about only going on a retreat, where you don't cheat. You have a nutritionist and you really, work on your body and you have a physical trainer, et cetera. And then you go back to your life and then you forget everything and then you hope for the best. No, longevity, and that's the vision of Novotel, is about everyday improvement. It's about, choosing the right thing to do across how you eat, how you sleep, how you move, how you connect with your social network. I think this dichotomy of it is a concern of everyone, but yet it's only for the most privileged people is what I feel is an opportunity for a brand like Novotel in the mid-scale segment. And this disruption is about leveling the playing fields. We have this ambitious mission with Novotel to really, I would say, democratize longevity in a way.
I think it'll be extremely interesting to see how the sector responds. So I'm looking forward to this. I'm curious, Jean-Yves, about the choice of the word longevity, because many of us in this space have struggled a bit with this word. Is it hip and cool enough? Is it something that's legible to people? And you come from a long experience on the theme, both from L'Oréal and Estée Lauder before. You chose a term that some of us feel is a bit technical or niche, so I'm delighted to see it. What gave you the confidence it would travel well with this democratizing move and mainstream guests? How are you educating maybe around it without sounding kind of preachy or health guru-ish?
Yeah, absolutely. So the concept of longevity really was born in the United States. Then it traveled to Asia and then is now moving more and more in Europe. The term itself still needs to be explained, and it's true. It's still a new concept. Now, it's a growing terminology that is being used. In fact, I believe in 2024, there was already 4 million hashtags in social media. Now, in 2026, there's even more. So there's more and more buzz around the term longevity, but it still needs to be explained. The reason why we coined the positioning of Novotel and the ambition of Novotel of longevity every day was really to call a cat. I think as a branding...
That's a very French expression, appeler un chat un chat. I love the English direct translation. Let's call a cat a cat.
Sorry, that's my French origins that come.
I love it. Here. That's the franglais. We'll take it.
So I think we need to be clear with people, especially Novotel is a very straightforward brand. We're no frills. We deliver value for our guests. And it comes with the tone of voice that we have as well. And longevity, we're talking about longevity should not be niche. So we should not shy away from talking about it. And that's why we call our ambition longevity every day. It is universal. Everyone wants to feel better for longer, and it resonates with guests and owners alike. Now, we could have called it another term, use it another term or whatnot. But for me, it's very important that when you choose your ambition, your positioning, it has to be big, simple, and true. So big has to be, for me, universal enough so that it resonates with as many hearts in the planet as possible. Simplicity is the next element. It has to be understandable from everyone in the organization, everyone who touches the brand, whether they are internal of the brand, the artists, for example, or external, our guests. And then it has to be true. Obviously, it has to really resonate with what any brand, in that case, Novotel, delivers, resonate with the value, be in line with the value proposition of the brand. So that's why we said, let's just call it everyday, longevity. But I would say the second word, everyday, is as important as longevity. It's not only longevity, it's longevity every day. And that's the magical twist of the Novotel brand, is being able to democratize that concept of longevity because one, everybody should have access to it. And second, it requires 1% improvement every single day. And that's why we called it longevity every day.
Well, you've obviously got away with words in franglais or anglais. And I love the twist of this big, simple, and true concepts, which I can see that you're using in the 4 pillars that I now want to dig into. You've identified 4 streams. You've made them really concrete: sleep, eat, move, and meet. Okay, now this can sound kind of obvious, perhaps, but they're not new individually. What's new about what you're doing with them is treating them as a system, as a product experience. How did you land? I mean, they are the fundamentals of longevity. Any health magazine will tell us this today. But it's true that they overlap rather beautifully with the hospitality sector. How did you land on these 4 as your strategic backbone? Was there a big kind of health debate internally, or was it just big, simple, and obvious?
Yeah, well, I love this question because simplicity is very hard to achieve. And
it is. I can't agree more.
No, very much so. And I know when I talk to my team that we have the concept right when everybody says, oh my God, it's so simple. Why we didn't think about it before?
Yes.
Now, this is the fruit of months and months of research with consumers, with owners internally, looking at doing SWOT analysis, et cetera, et cetera. So it requires tremendous amount of work, and my team can
test for that.
But then at the end, you have that meeting and there's a light bulb and people say, oh my God, it's so simple. We should have thought about it before. And that's where I know that we have it. So going back to your question about the 4 pillars, yes, they are very simple: sleep, eat, move, and meet. To be honest, these are my grandmother's tips of how to live better, right? If you sleep a little bit more, if you eat a little bit better, if you move with intention, if you meet with your social connections, then you're going to feel better today and for the longer run. So the 4 pillars are really rooted in both people and business. It starts with people, our human nature, to sleep well, eat well, move, connect, and the nature around us, the planet and the oceans that sustain life. But of course, it comes back to business because at the end of the day, we're in the for-profit industry, and these pillars of life are what we serve every day in a hotel like Novotel. We are a place to sleep. We provide opportunities for people to eat. We have gyms and pools so that people can move. And at the end of the day, we are also a place where people meet. They meet with their family, they meet with their friends. It's also a travel reality. When people travel, routines slip, right? The sleeps get disrupted, the meals become reactive, the movement becomes optional. And I'm the first one to do that. When I have the jet lag, I'm like, okay, I'm going to wake up at 6 and I'm going to go to the gym. And it's a commitment. Sometimes connection can disappear. Now we have technology that helps us to stay connected to our loved ones. But it's part of life. And it's also what the hotel provides. So when we were kind of structuring the value proposition of Novotel, we thought it was absolutely relevant because this is our biggest opportunity to help. But it was also extremely simple to structure what we do at Novotel through these 4 pillars of life, because 1, it resonates with what the guest is looking for. And 2nd, it resonates with the shift that are happening when he or she travels.
So I'm not going to dig into every single one of them, but I would like to dig a bit into the last one, the meet, which sounds like a social design shift for hotels. Give me a bit. We were talking about your projects of lobby redesign. What behavior are you trying to create, especially perhaps for solo travelers or midlife travelers or the families that you have served since your beginnings? What are you talking about around meat?
Well, as you said, and I'm glad that you asked to focus specifically on meat, because when we think about longevity, eat, sleep, and move, it is quite straightforward. But most often we forget the importance of these social connections. And they are as fundamental as eating well. So social connection is unfortunately often overlooked, and it's a critical part of longevity. For us at Novotel, we want to create hotels and experiences that are like hotels that are like social ecosystems, not transactional spaces. This change has been ongoing in recent years with full shifts in how we design public spaces, for example. In the past, you had the traditional concierge and you had the counter where you go and you walk through a corridor and you go and check in. This is now shifting, and it's been shifting for a few years now. We are designing our social areas, the lobby and the social areas in a completely different way because we're putting life at the center of what we do. We put food and drink and social connections at the center of the hospitality experience so that solo travelers, families, and colleagues can connect naturally. You don't feel alone when you enter a Novotel anymore. We tend to remove the friction and the formality where it's possible so that when you enter, you can arrive, you settle, and you stay a while, hopefully. You feel good in our spaces. So I think the longevity experience really starts with the way you're welcome in our lobbies at Novotel.
Okay, so an architectural shift to meet one of the longevity pillars, which I find interesting. And then the other concept you were speaking about, I hooked onto, was this shift from business travel focusing on energy management rather than time management. What does that look like? What does a longevity-informed meeting or offsite now look like in practice in a Novotel? And what might we notice that's changed beyond the lobby and the welcoming drink? I'm very glad that we don't have to go down those long corridors to that scary desk anymore.
You know, I've been working for quite a long time, almost 30 years now, and I come from that generation where I've been told over and over and over again that I need to manage my time better. And especially now with AI and everything being so rushed and so pressed, and we are working in so many things at the same time. Time management has always been at the center of everything. And I'm not saying that managing time is not important, but there's a big shift that needs to happen, especially when it comes to professionals. It's not so much, not only about managing time, but it's about managing energy. Because when you manage energy, you optimize your performance, whether, you're at work, you're traveling, you're with your family, and the demands that comes with your lifestyle. So when a business traveler stays at Novotel, I want their rhythm to be protected. I want them to have a great sleep, a smart comfort, a flow that reduces frictions and decision fatigue. And I want them to be at the peak of their performance, whether they are a father of 3 kids or just one, and or a business person. So to help guests really build these long-term healthy habits, our experiences for the professionals focuses on different key elements. One, we're taking the intentional breaks of the meeting with light movements and exercise, because again, moving is important. The food supports focus and sustainability. We have shifted our menus for meeting and events so that they really focus on superfood, for example, to really fulfill our guests. The drinks are here to boost creativity and promote calmness and rest. And this change is already noticed by our guests. It feels intuitive, not restrictive. It's also very modern in what people want today. Food that supports energy without feeling like health, disgusting food, from the past. They're so delicious, yet they help you with maximizing your energy so that you can manage your day better. So I guess at the end, the summary of all of that is that our ambition is very simple when it comes to business travel. It's about energy management. Business travel should be here to help manage energy, not just being efficient with time. so that people can feel at the peak of their performance.
It sounds like potentially very transformative. I mean, we've all been to these endless business meetings with terrible food, terrible sandwiches. You don't move all day. You sit. You're exhausted and wiped out by the end. And, you don't have enough energy to go to the gym or the pool. So I'm curious again to see what will be the productivity measures companies start to put on their meetings. That'll probably be the next step, the ROI on these shifts. So from business, let's go to the family side. And you've always served families. They're great longevity customers. How does it fit in with the theme, longevity every day? How you're thinking about especially the multi-generational travel, grandparents, teens, toddlers. I know I'm traveling more and more with suddenly, again, at my advanced age, two very little ones. And it reminds me of, 30 years ago. Here we are again. And it does require some very particular things from the places you stay.
Oh, yeah. Talking about needing to manage your energy with toddlers. Yes. I know what Novotel, is a fantastic brand because it's not only a wonderful experience for professionals, and we just talked about it, but it's also wonderful for families. And we know what we're talking about. We have a lot of credibility with families. We actually have a piece of data. 9 families out of 10 would recommend Novotel worldwide.
That's amazing.
And this is proven by research. So, and no wonder, because we are serving today 5 million families a year across our 600 hotels around the world. So we're kind of, family is our core business.
Families is your DNA.
It's our DNA. It is really our DNA. Back to, what we were discussing before in 1967 with the congé payé, the paid vacation in France. Novotel really allowed and enabled people to maximize their families. And at that time, we were already kind of democratizing hospitality in a way, because we were offering innovative brand to deliver on these family requests and needs. Longevity is not really a change. It's a refined evolution that is so relevant for families. It takes our strength with families and make it even more relevant to their today needs and pressures. And you mentioned some of them that are not necessarily pressures, being with teens or toddlers or grandparents, but how do you manage these multi-generational families? So for us, we think that families need the basics done brilliantly: better sleep, better food options. And that you have kids and now grandkids. If they sleep well and if they eat well, then we are halfway there already. They need easy movement, especially the younger they are, they need to move and they need space to be together. At Novotel, we have a suite of offerings, free breakfast, kids under 16 stay for free. So I'm not going to have a commercial here, but it's really designed around that family, and even more so that multi-generational families with connected rooms so that the family can stay together even if they are in different rooms. So the role of the hotel is to make that social connection coexist smoothly, I have to say. The lens is shifting from being family friendly to family strengthening at Novotel. And this is something that really the new strategy of longevity every day has really put forward. So we've always been very strong with the family, and we had spaces and services and experiences that were family friendly for so many years. And I'm really pushing my team to deliver more on family strengthening, creating the condition for shared moment while still giving each generation room to spend time in their own way. That's very difficult to achieve. And that's the magic and the superiority of the Novotel brand, because at the end of the day, we need to continue to be competitive. So what in practice this leads to is less friction, fewer compromises, better harmony within that multi-generational family, a rhythm that helps everyone leave in a better shape than when they arrived at Novotel.
It's really interesting. I mean, the more I listen to you, Jean-Yves, the more I think you're in this, deep project of sort of social engineering support, preparing the architecture so that people don't know they're being healthy or social. They just kind of ease into it. And brings me maybe to my last theme that you raised on this question, the democratization question. And you're not kind of promising people are going to live to be 100 or giving them the cryogenic chambers and all that stuff. All you're saying is 1% improvement every day as a promise. I find that a nice, modest, probably achievable goal. That how do you avoid it, though, nudging people or becoming either guilt-inducing or a bit gimmicky? What's behind the 1% a day?
Yeah, the 1% is really about this continuous improvement. So when we said before, longevity is for the happy few, the retreats, etc. This is great. And, we should continue to have that. But our parti pris, as I would say in French, is more about that continuous everyday improvement. And it has to be small so that it's accessible for everyone. At Novotel, there is no shaming. There is no judging. If you eat a little bit better today, that's already achieving longevity. The 1% mindset is explicitly not about perfection. It's consistency and it's compounding. Small shifts that feel realistic, even on the most hectic travel day, is what really matters. There's something around the 1% that I really like. First of all, I like numbers. A little fun fact about me, I was a math teacher at some point. So I'm a little bit of a math geek.
Comes back to the big, simple, and true formula.
Exactly. Yeah. I like things in order, things simple, really well organized. And so that 1% really, I was brainstorming with my team and we were trying to really build that allegory of what happens to you when you improve 1% every single day. And we came with that quite brilliant idea of the 37, the concept of 37. So follow me here. It's a little bit mathematical, but so if you improve by 1%, it's 1.01 compared to 1, which is you're not doing anything different, right? And you put it at the power of 365, which is 365 days. That equation equals to 37. So what we like to say, and it's theoretical, obviously, but it's a good image that if you do 1% better, 1% better of anything across the 4 pillars of life, at the end of the year, you're already 37 times better. So small actions add up over time. And really, this is the essence of longevity every day by Novotel. We avoid gimmicks around things that are drastic changes for yourself. And we really want to position ourselves as a credible voice to provide tips that are accessible for everyone. We're so passionate about it that actually we created the Novotel 37 Collective. I don't know if you've heard about that collective, and we called it 37 on purpose. It's a global community of athletes and creators and experts who share tips on small improvements we can make in our daily lives so that we make longevity feel more achievable. So the collective, it's a group of famous and not famous people. They share tips, interviews, videos, on-property activation, and that translates the idea of longevity into simple choices and daily behaviors. Because at the end of the day, what is very important and very true to the mission of the brand is, yes, we want to deliver a longevity experience when our guests come to Novotel. But most importantly, we want to accompany them. We want to be with them on their daily lives in the quest for longevity. So the Collective 37 is here to inspire everyone to maintain these good habits even after your stay.
I love the counterpoint to where so much of the longevity sector seems to be going in all its complexity and weird, torturous regimes and medicalized everything and AI everywhere. And here you are just saying 1% a day will compound to almost 40% over the course of a year, just with these really simple, basic, common sense behaviors. I love that it's a French brand that's pushing this, just because I think it's redolent of French culture, perhaps more generally, versus some of these more, I hate to add, but a little Anglo-Saxon extremism on some things. But anyway, we're not going to go political here. I want to zoom out to conclude a little bit on some of the ripple effects of your strategy. And touch perhaps first on workforce issues. We're talking a lot about customers. I wanted to ask, how does this translate internally? Older employees, the human hunger for connection. How are you reflecting your policy for not just guests, but also careers, recruitment, retention, late stage work, all those good longevity themes?
It sounds obvious and again, simple and true, but hotels are powered by people. If there is one industry that is really, really human and will continue to be human, is really the hospitality industry. And these people need purpose, progression, and connection. They need longevity in their career and a brand that understands that this is an important step for them. So I have to say, at the base level, the 1% mindset applies also for what we call our heartists. So they are the staff in our hotels.
That's a cute term, heartists.
Oh, it's a beautiful term. The Accor group invented that term a few years ago already, and I absolutely love it. This is why I keep on using it. It's this idea of being an artist, because it's a craft to deliver a service in a hotel or a restaurant, but with the heart. And that's the main difference of our Accor artists versus other staff members. So going back to the intersection between longevity and our artists around the world, the 1% mindset really applies here as well. It's small improvements in training, in well-being of this workforce, in the schedules. The culture itself is about, no shaming, but really being inclusive. That compounds into stronger retention and service. We have a very, very high retention rate, despite, the industry being plagued with a lot of rotations, I would say, at Novotel, because we're that brand that really creates the condition where different life stages can thrive at work. 2 examples, and they are, I would say, not anecdotal, but I think they tell a story. There was this artist in Cardiff in the UK who joined Novotel as his second career in his late 50s after 20 years managing big teams and factories in the computer and telecom industry. Actually, his interview is on our website. And what he wanted is really to be at the contact of people, really getting that energy from meeting and serving people. This idea of being able to serve people at any age is something very important. And we see that also in the career of our CEOs, our regional CEOs. Most of our regional CEOs who now manage huge, large businesses around the world, they all started on property in hotels and rose through the ranks over decades to become what we call hub or regional CEOs. It is a career with longevity, if I may say. So the group, and Novotel in particular, is really embracing this concept of longevity also when it comes to managing and motivating our workforce.
Good. Okay. So we'll get some reflections of the internal with the external on longevity every day. I want to conclude with a little bit of future looking out. If we go 10 years forward, you've coined a term, I like your formulas, Jean-Yves. So you've coined the term quiet well-being, and you're also linking your longevity strategy to your sustainability strategy. What will a successful mid-scale hotel brand look like in 2035, when we will be a much older continent? And what will guests consider non-negotiable?
Wow. It's a tough question. I mean, I don't have a crystal ball. I think if we keep on listening to to people and listening to consumers and owners, etc., we will keep on being relevant as a brand. And I think, listen, by 2035, if that's the number, I think well-being will still be a non-negotiable. We learned that the hard way during the COVID times, where people really realized that emotional, physical, and psychological well-being is critical. We know we're going to live longer. I think there's a stat from the Stanford Institute of Longevity that says that kids in the US aged 5 or less have 50% chance of living over 100 years old. So it's not so much about living longer, it's about living better longer. And that's the concept of longevity. And this is here to stay. Again, this is a mega trend. This is a need of everyone around the planet. But what will change probably is the way people approach it. And we hope that Novotel will be part of that movement of bringing longevity accessible for everyone, because it will be a more quieter well-being. And that's why we like to call it quiet well-being. It will be less visible, but ever present in operations, in design and service. Guests will experience it in repeatable rituals versus extreme experiences. I talked about the famous retreats and working with the nutritionist, etc. People will be able to do it on their own because they will be educated. Their awareness will be raised in that regard. So I think quiet well-being so well-being will still be there, but the way people will approach well-being is something that will be new. And that's what we call quiet well-being. Now, there's an interesting parallel between quiet luxury and quiet well-being. And that's why I love the term quiet well-being. If you think about the evolution of luxury across the years, especially when you look at it from a business perspective with the emerging middle class and emerging markets, in the past, especially in these markets, luxury was very ostentatious. It was about, the brand was very important. The logo had to be at the forefront of the experience and in fashion, etc. Fast forward today, it's about being in the know. It's about the craftsmanship. It's about smaller brands. It's about more niche experiences that are very, very exclusive. And that's what we call quiet luxury. Quiet well-being is the same. You think 20 years ago, it was really, and I'm not saying it's not the case anymore in some countries, but it was really about having the perfect body and, going to the gym and exercising a lot and having no fat and eating a certain way. And you have so many diets out there, the keto, the no protein, a lot of protein, a lot of vegetables, not eating at night. I mean, it's just so confusing for any consumers. So it is unfortunately still a little bit harsh, but what quiet well-being is about is, again, this 1%, this improvement is you might not have the biggest muscles on your body, but you're flexible, you have strength, you have stamina, you have energy. And that's what quiet well-being is all about. Now, there is also, I think, another element to this, which is we talked a lot about the well-being of the people, right? The personal well-being.
Yep.
But this is completely linked also with the well-being of our planet. Because to be honest, there's no longevity of any of us if we don't live in a planet that has longevity. So we have to protect our planet. And I don't want to be the person trying to push that sustainability agenda here. I strongly believe in it. But well-being of the people is intimately interlinked with the well-being of our planet. And that's why a brand like Novotel signed a global multi-year partnership with WWF, that is the worldwide recognized organization to protect the oceans. We are working day in, day out with them to protect our oceans because we know the oceans are so critical to the health of our planet and therefore our communities. So for me, quiet well-being is also applicable to the environment, because to be honest, cleaning the oceans, you don't really see it. It's not very ostentatious, but it's so needed. So successful brands, I think in the future, will need to be able to embrace this idea of quiet well-being, because they will have to have people feel better and more rested, more energized, more connected in a world that is, in better shape than it is today, I have to say.
Amen. Yes. And absolutely. And I mean, really, this whole strategy is doing what a lot of the longevity space is trying to shift from, this focus on lifespan and extending lives too much, too extreme, to a focus on health span, and how these small behaviors that you're now redesigning a whole system around can get us to where we need to go, which is better health spans, no matter how long these lifespans are going to be. So, Jean-Yves, thank you for centering longevity strategy in your work. I think this is going to be a pioneering example for not just your industry, I think, but for many others, and tying it, I think, from the personal well-being front to the planetary one is extraordinarily powerful. So I wish you much success, and we'll call back in a few years to check in on how it's going.
With great pleasure. Thank you so much for the very, very interesting chat this morning. And I hope to see you soon, Avivah.
Avec plaisir.
Merci.
And that brings us to the end of my conversation with Jean-Yves Minet at Novotel. What stayed with me is how deliberately unflashy his strategy is. In a longevity market that's increasingly noisy, medicalized, and frankly, a bit extreme, Novotel is staking out a different position. Longevity is everyday design. Not perfection, not performative wellness, just the steady compounding power of small choices. Sleep a little bit better, eat a little smarter, move a little more, meet a little more intentionally, especially when travel normally does the opposite to us. Jean-Yves' 1% a day framing is both modest and quietly radical, because it shifts well-being from something you buy to something you build, and it makes the hotel itself a kind of behavioral architecture, nudging without preaching. When he links quiet well-being to planetary well-being, you can see where this goes next. Health span, trust, and sustainability becoming genuinely non-negotiable. I'm Avivah Wittenberg-Cox, and we are living our 4-quarter lives. For more thinking about the impact of our 4-quarter lives, you can read my column at Forbes and subscribe to my Elderberries newsletter on Substack. Let's design lives that aren't just longer, but better.